as we go through. Welcome everybody to the Master of Science in Engineering information session. We've got a lot of really great information to share with you, but I'll hand it over to Ted to talk a little bit more about the engineering program. You want to go ahead and take it away?
Yeah, so I'll be talking about the overall engineering program, and then Victoria will talk more about the specific mechanics of the application requirements. And we got a lot of unique information to give you tonight, so let's get right into it. Thank you. Next slide, please. And feel free, we're trying to be interactive, so if you have questions as we go, if you can just spit them out, that would be great for us to kind of work through as we go. But let me introduce myself. I'm Ted Tracy. I'm a graduate of Brown. I've had two of my children go to Brown, and I've been a member of a family of 6 people that went to Brown. So I've been around Brown for a long time. I presently serve as the program director for the master's students and specifically concentrate on the area of electrical and computer engineering. And I have several cohorts that are on this chart as well that are worrying about the different concentrations within our master's programs as well. Whether it's people like Mike Donahue that are worrying about our DCIS or computing engineering program, or Marissa Gray, who's worrying about our biomedical engineering. We're trying to work closely with the different concentration groups to give them as many options and flexibility with their curriculum as possible, as we'll get into. Next slide, please. And this is our home, established in 2018, a brand new building, which has really come a long way very quickly for us and has made a huge impact on the environment. It's often the case that you see in the cafe area in this building, you see people that are collaborating not only in the engineering school, but in other parts of the campus, because it's such a pleasant and warm place to collaborate and work with teams. So it's really set up well for that. And the primary function of the building initially was to attract new high-end world-class research, and we have a whole new set of lab spaces that allow us to fund those types of activities. But we're finding to be for all types of disciplines around the company as well, as really just a wonderful place to collaborate. And you do notice that there's the infinity sign there, and I'll talk about that in the next slide, please. And so when we commemorated the new building, we wanted a symbol, and so there was a project that went on to say, what was the symbol that represents what Brown is all about, Brown Engineering is all about. And we really focused on the infinity symbol because we believe in our curriculum, one of the things that makes us very different is that we have infinite possibilities in a lot of regards in terms of our program. We pride ourselves in trying to be very flexible about the different types of coursework that we have and the way that we collaborate often across many disciplines across the campus. So it's infinite in extent in that regard. We also just have a culture that's sizable enough to be relevant, but at the same time, not so big that it's difficult for people to collaborate and get to know their professors and other advisors very closely. Rhode Island itself is a small state, but it's a very comfortable state and has a great, rich collection of academics, as well as athletics, as well as environmental things going on. So it's really a wonderful place to collaborate, a lot of possibilities there as well. And then the most important is that we do cutting edge research, and we have many world-class organizations working, whether it's in biomedicine or in data computing or electrical engineering. We have a variety of different disciplines across campus, and there's many possibilities to collaborate in those areas as well. So our theme is infinite possibilities. And what I threw in as an additional point is that the timing is very good to be joining Brown. I mentioned the new building that's about 6 years old for us. And a lot of great things are being enabled because of that new space, that new resource. And we are continuing to grow our infrastructure in the campus as well. So a lot of focus on maker spaces and areas that people can really be hands-on and with their collaboration as well. But we're also staffing up the organization. We have a great dean that's recently been in the department for the last couple of years, and she has built a staff that's going to be doing wonderful things for us in terms of our planning and our growth. We have 3 different programs that we can offer in terms of the master's degree. We'll talk about those in depth. So you get some flexibility there as well. And then it just seems to be creatively all kinds of new programs and disciplines and leadership roles that are being developed across the campus. So we see that a lot is happening. I know the class that I'm going to be teaching in the spring, which is a basic circuits class, has grown from just under 100 people to now close to 150 in a matter of just a couple of years. So we know that people are really getting more engaged with engineering. They know that it's a great investment of their time. And we just feel the energy in the building and the classrooms and the different collaborations going on. And of course, we have great students, and having great students provides a lot of energy to the environment as well. Next slide, please. And so specifically in our master's program, we give you three distinct options that you can go down. And there are slight variations and specific exceptions that are offered. And that's part of my job, is to work with students to provide the advice on how to build their curriculum for the next couple of years. But these are the three main starting points. And one is a traditional master's program, usually takes 2 years chronologically to get through that. And you have some combination of 8 classes or classroom time. And then you augment that with a research project, which is typically augmented with a master's thesis as well. So that would be considered a traditional program. You get a good variety of a lot of different things. It's very academic oriented, and it's a great program if you were to be considering to go on to a PhD program after your time at Brown. The next program it's really about vocational training or going deeper on a topic area or a set of topics. And that's the non-thesis option. Again, focus very much on classroom academics. You take 8 unique classes. And this is for a professional that wants to get trained in a certain area. It could be data science, for example, or it could be computer engineering. And they want to do that because they're trying to transition into a new job role in the market. And they'll be through the program in 3 semesters time, or chronologically on a calendar about 1.5 years. And this is really a very specific investment that you make before you go on, probably to work back in industry after that. And then the new option that we have, which many people are excited to know more about, is our so-called non-thesis professional option. And in this case, it's very clear that you are going to take classes at Brown to get a master's degree. And to get a little more of a vicarious experience in industry, you will work closely with a company, what we'll call a partner, that will offer you a co-op position. And in that co-op position, you'll work for a period of time not to exceed 6 months. And you will have on the calendar a commitment of 2 years' time. But one of those 6 months periods will be used to actually work in the industry as an intern or as what we call a co-op. There are variations of this as well, because the internship technically is a little different in terms of duration than the co-op. But we expect you to really get trained to go back into industry, and to make that transition easy for you, you can hopefully work for a company that will be interested in making that opportunity possible for you as well. So this new professional option is getting a lot of attention, and we now have recently received our clearance for both international and domestic students to be able to achieve this if we can follow the prescribed timing that it does fulfill our requirements in terms of visa status. And that's a big focus area for us as well. And I'm sure for many of the people on the call tonight. Next slide, please. And so, Ted, you've been talking about these infinite possibilities in these classes. So give me a couple of examples of those. And here we go. So this is in computer engineering. We have a new professor, a new associate professor on board, Pepe Zhao. And her concentration, her focus is to have cloud-based computing that's at your fingertips. And you can actually, for different types of applications, you can design in how much of different compute power you need for different types of problems and analysis that you're doing. So if you're doing machine learning models and you need an array of tensors, you can have that. If you need graphic GPU type applications, we can dial in that as well. And so what we're learning is how to use those network resources more effectively and build computer models that can give to better efficiencies than if you would actually purchase a fixed amount of equipment yourself. So this provides a lot of discussion about the dynamic nature of computing and how you can use that most efficiently. And this is brand new research for us right now. In her first semester, she's teaching right now. She has over 35 students involved in the class. So there's a lot of interest in this particular class, which is great. Next slide, please. And then, it doesn't all have to be rigorous academics and equations. It can be something that's more artful. So we all see that in fluid mechanics and in the study of fluids, they're always very interested in patterns that are generated. And we've added some color to that as well. So in fact, there's a class that talks about how you can use patterns developed by fluid mechanics to develop pieces of art. And now we have a very nice display in our ERC, our collaboration buildings lobby way, that shows examples of this. And to generate such images does require a lot of creativity and a lot of computing as well. So this is a class that shows you how to build something very artistic from something that's a piece of basic science, such as fluid mechanics. Next slide, please. And then we have areas such as optical microscopy, led at this point by Professor Toussaint, who's one of our deans. And this is an interesting area because it brings together the collaboration of a lot of different disciplines. It could be basic physics. It could be lasers and optics, which is a strong area of research for us as well. It could be a biomedical type application involved. So this is a really good example of a class that can bring in a lot of different disciplines and be very interesting to use and very useful in society because people are finding increasing, especially in healthcare applications with microscopy for obvious reasons. And this is a very topical area for us as well, as we do a lot of work in some of the things that contributed to Nobel Prize type performances as well. So very active area of research here at Brown. Thank you. Next class. Next slide. Oh, and this is my class. This looks very familiar. I actually was passionate about trying to bring the radio engineering aspect back into microwave engineering. For years, we'd been studying microwave engineering, but we had neglected the whole explosion having to do with things like Wi-Fi and mobile computing and mobile communications related to 5G. And so what I've built, and we are building it as we speak, and we're teaching it this semester, is a bridge of topics that go from traditional electromagnetics and having to do things like Maxwell's equations to doing transmission line study, but we've expanded more recently into areas having to do with digital communications, and specifically with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and 5G mobile. And so this experiment it's a great class. People have learned a lot in the class, but we frankly have some areas that we can improve the curriculum and how we pace the different topics. But this is an area of investment, and we feel like we're making a great investment for something that is exploding in our situation today. And so anything to do with radio engineering and the use of satellite communications and mobile computing, all these things are very topical, and we're trying to give a new incentive to the whole discipline related to our microwave engineering class. Next slide, please. And it doesn't have to be all about technology as well. So this is Professor Banu. To be honest with you, I can't pronounce the last name, but she is a distinct lecturer for us as well. And she talks about how organizations work and how you fit and optimize your role within organizations. And so if you are getting a degree at Brown as a master's to go back into industry, this class is very topical for that, because it shows how organizations work. Organizations in business can be slightly different than they could be in the nonprofit sector or in the educational sectors as well. So we teach you how to react and collaborate inside these organizations. And our Professor Banu is an expert at this and has spoken on this. And this class is extremely popular. So when you come to Brown, we will have a mix of different classes that you can choose from, and you'll work with an advisor like myself or an academic advisor who's a member of the faculty that will actually design the program for you. And if you know that you're going to be heading in a certain area, then maybe a class like this organizational development and leadership could be a great thing for you as well. And so we give you that flexibility to do that. Next slide, please. And then there's a question about, am I going there to actually get into research heavily, in which case I'd be very focused on doing thesis, or is it I'm really focused on getting my in-depth training, maybe not to get that academic about things and not do a thesis, but learn more about the basics in the classroom and then go back into industry. So one of the questions that you have to answer, and you don't need to answer it in the first semester of Brown, but while you're going through your evaluation of your 2-year trajectory, you can decide whether you want to be pursuing a thesis and some research. There's only a couple of things that can be considered about that. Is to be doing a thesis, you're really doing that against the research area. So you need to find a sponsor within the organization that is doing interesting research for you. And one of the things that we advise on is that you take a class of high interest to you. It could be the reconfigurable computing class that we talked about, or it could be anything in the field of biomedicine, for example. And to really get to know the research in the professor and the team of people that are researching that, if you take that class, you may realize that's a passion that you have, in which case you try to become part of that lab or have that PI, principal investigator for that lab, be your sponsor, in which case you can actually do some work at a thesis level. The thing about research is it's not a casual thing. You have to make a decision that you want to go into that area, and you're going to have to make an investment of several months of your time to set up the research and to get a reasonable piece of work done in the time frame of a couple of years. It's a serious commitment. So you're going to need the support or the sponsorship of one of our academic leaders in the organization to do that. Next slide, please. So speaking of that research, let's take a look at some of those things that are going on. Next slide, please. And so this is in the area of fluids and thermal sciences, for example. And, sure, that sounds like a very traditional topic in engineering and basic sciences, but we're trying to apply it to interesting new environmental type conditions and social type conditions as well. So we've done research on the science of champagne bubbles, for example. But probably what's more topical are things that can affect our geographic, our climate, and our environmental context as well. And so you could be applying a traditional field like fluids and thermal sciences to what's changing in the environment. And that would be a really important high leverage activity and research that's going on in a place like Brown. Next slide, please. And then, of course, in biomedical, this is our fastest growing concentration at both the undergraduate as well as our master's level. We have collaborations happening with the School of Medicine, the School of Public Health. There's also been an increased sensitivity about this whole area of biomedical engineering because of COVID, for example. People realize why that's so important and what an impact we can have with some of our research in terms of clinical work and drug remedies for severe problems for society. And we study the problem at different scales, as this chart is trying to indicate. So there's a lot of research going on, a lot of discussion about nanoscale and nanoparticles. The one I like, because it kind of bridges it in the area of electronics as well, is the fact that we're building implants that can actually be placed in the body, in some cases in the brain, that are electrical systems that we can actually stimulate and do research on the effect that it has on human behavior. So very rich area of concentration. In fact, this area has been noted to be too rich with too many choices. And so you're going to have to narrow down within the field of biomedical what you really want to concentrate on, because this is a big area of investment for, not just for Brown, but across the globe. Next slide, please. And then one of the things that we're cognizant of is, there's traditional science. Many of the big schools can offer traditional science programs. We know that. But we're trying to find certain areas that we're being very recent and topical about as well. And one of those areas is design. And Brown, in this small state of Rhode Island, has this very unique position that we have a great partnership with RISD, Rhode Island School of Design. So even in my classes, I have a couple students that come from RISD. And so what we're trying to do is bring in the basics of a high-end engineering master's degree with the artistic value of design. And design is such a huge commodity. You can see that, mainstream brands such as Apple, for example, and Tesla, these guys have made huge investments into design. So they're building great products, and they're thinking through the usability of those and the right products to use and the right kind of appeal that you should introduce with the new technology. And that whole area of design is very topical and very recent. And you can come to Brown and get a master's in just that particular area and work at the combination of two world-class organizations between Brown and also RISD as well. Next slide. And then this is my bailiwick, which is all about computer engineering, which can be almost anything. What I say to people all the time is, it can be a wide set of disciplines, and the more of those the better, as it works in terms of computing engineering. I try not to have people just know everything about circuits or about electronics or about computers only. I want them to know about software design. I want them to know about product design. I want them to know about electronics. And you can actually apply your knowledge at this level. If you're making an investment to get another 4 or 5 classes in this area that you're going to be deep and recent with, that you'll be able to use in industry. And so this whole area is exploding for us as well. As I mentioned, by the size of our classes seem to be growing very, very dramatically at this point. And that's why I made my investment to come teach at Brown, because I'm trying to bring things that are needed in industry back to the classroom and really get people to use their knowledge in the classroom for real product differences. Next slide, please. And we can talk about a lot of the research in the classes, but again, it's the people that really are the most important asset in the organization, in the campus that we have. And so this is Anoop, and he actually serves as one of our ambassadors for our graduate program for electrical and computer. Now, oddly enough, he is background formally in fluids and thermal sciences, and he's going to get his PhD in that area. But he also spends much of his time working in the computer science group, and specifically with drones, because that's an area that he's very passionate about as well. So this is a really good example of an individual that's just driven enough and motivated to learn about multiple areas of science, and who knows what his career path will be eventually, but it's going to be an interesting one. And he's a wonderful example of a person that's been able to take the most potential out of the campus, out of the curriculum that we have, and he's using it to help other graduates to be as well. Next slide, please. And so this is the detail about the co-op program that we have. This is brand new, introduced in the last 12 months. It's been happening in different parts of the campus. In biomedicine, biomedical engineering, for example, we've had co-op programs. And there's been some stipulations that only domestic students were supported at the time. Now we've come a little broader scale, and we built one of our 3 tracks based on this co-op program. So to give you the opportunity to work for one of our partnering companies and to get some experience working in industry to augment what you're learning at the advanced level in the classroom. Generally, the programs would be 6 months or less. You have to be, while you're doing that partnership, which we have to work together to be able to find those opportunities for any student. But while you're doing that partnership at the company, you are also enrolled in one of our classes, considered to be a pilot class. We call it the experimental learning experience, immersive experience, and that's called the ELI program. And so you'll take one of our classes that acts as a proxy that you are actually working in industry for that semester. And also, we train you to be ready for that opportunity as well. So there's vocational training to improve your communication skills if you need that, to improve the way you represent yourself on your resume, the way that you network and interview for opportunities. This is very vocational to get you ready to work in the real world. And hopefully something that the companies that you work with get a really good flavor for the kind of student and kind of capabilities that you can offer to the company as well. So it's a two-way interviewing process, if you will, and a wonderful way to augment the great stuff that you're learning in the classroom as well. So we're planning now to bring on a new set of partnership to give opportunities as soon as the spring, but most likely the summer of 25. So as you were to enter into Brown in this coming cohort this coming year, then you'd have an opportunity to probably act on this in the following summer. Next slide. And the way we codify that is we talk a lot, and when we're doing counseling of the academic program that you have, we talk a lot about how you space out your classes across the different semesters. So the first decision you make is about whether you want to be going straight research, or you just want to get the classroom training, but not the research and not the professional track, or you may want to be professional track. So you make that decision first. That will dictate how much time you spend on campus. And then we work with you and we fill out your curriculum to say how we space the different types of classes out across the way. Now, the one on the bottom is particularly interesting for the professional track or for the person that's trying to do the co-op. We call this the 3-2-1-2 trajectory, which means when you come to Brown in the first semester, you're going to take 3 classes in that fall. You're going to take 2 classes in the following spring. You're getting ready to interview and meet with companies. And you expect that summer and then the following fall to be working in a co-op position with a company. And then you come back in your final semester and you take 2 additional classes. And that whole combination fits nicely that you'd be able to get your 8 classes and your opportunity to work for 6 months as well.
Maybe
Now,
put that thing down.
All that is covered in the handbook, which is shown as a detail on that particular slide. But all the different possible scenarios and the templates that we use to offer that are all documented for you to see when you become an entry student within the organization as well. I'm sorry, was there a question there?
This is Nixon DeSanto, just log in. Okay.
Did any of you guys catch that?
Nixon DeSantos.
I think he was probably asking. We need to understand the timing of that, and I couldn't agree more. So we will be able to explain the detail of that timing. There's a couple different so-called trajectories that we have that can support but we're so early in the program. I think the biggest focus right now is trying to understand the details, what you need to do to fit in your trajectory, but also for us to recruit some companies that are interested in hiring our guys. So we'll give you more detail about the timing of that as we go. And then the last slide I have here is that, the way I look at this is we said infinite possibilities, but we're really giving you a great set of choices to make. If you want to go straight research into PhD programs after your master's, there's a whole set of great companies, great colleges that we work with and have sent our students to get a more advanced PhD level world-class research program. We're always going to welcome you to come look at Brown as well. But there are other colleges and universities that we work closely with. You recognize those brands. So you have that option to you. But also, if you decide that maybe research isn't, or academics is not really where you want to be in the long run, then we start talking about other types of research positions and also other type of industrial positions. Would consider that to be the professional track. And we have many great brands or great companies that we work with to allow you to work with those opportunities as well. So you really can't make a bad decision here. You're going to have an opportunity to go either through the professional track or the academic PhD track. And we have great partnerships with people to support you as you go. And I think that may be the last slide. So why don't we break there to see if there's any questions about the the academic program that we have, and then we can move on to maybe some of the application requirements as well. Any questions that are coming in through chat possibly, or anybody want to verbalize a question?
Is it I guess possible to go through this program while working? Like if
Absolutely.
you're already working in industry?
Yeah, it absolutely is possible. I have a student right now that's doing that at the undergraduate level, and I have one that's doing that at a graduate level as well. So again, that just, we'll have to talk specifically about the timing, and, there'll be things like if in the summer term you're actually not working and you want to do more, if you're in the winter term, you weren't working as much and you want to do more classwork, you could do that. But I'm sure we can design a program that could fit your schedule to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, because when you look at it in the graduate program, and you're taking 2 or at most 3 classes at any one time, and people generally can work and keep that going. It does require flexibility from the employer that you have, but they're motivated for you to go into that depth as well. So generally, we can make those arrangements work. Great question. Thank you, Amanda. Other questions? Okay, Victoria, why don't you walk us through the next important piece of this?
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. So my name is Victoria Bray. I'm the Associate Director of Graduate Enrollment here at Brown Universities, and I work primarily with our master's students on applying to Brown and then eventually enrolling. So let's get started. I want to talk a little bit more about the holistic review process that we have for all of our master's programs at Brown. So really, we're considering your whole application when we review your candidacy. A couple of the things that we look for are on the screen. We're looking for folks who are academically ready for the program. That doesn't necessarily mean just your GPA. It's the courses that you've taken, the grades you've gotten in those courses, and then sort of how you stack up to the rest of the pool. We're really looking for folks who academically can manage the workload in the engineering program. Research and work experience isn't required, but certainly adds to your application if you have participated in anything while you've been in school or since you've graduated. Really, your resume and your CV will be how you highlight those experiences. We also want to get an understanding of your specific goals as they pertain to the program. We get at this a couple of different ways. You'll submit a statement of purpose, which should ideally outline why you're interested in Brown's engineering program, whichever engineering program you're interested in. Not just why, but also why the School of Engineering, but also why Brown. Why do you think Brown is a good fit for you? What are your professional goals? What do you think that an engineering degree and the research that you do and the classwork that you do, what do you think that will get you for your professional career moving forward? How will it help you with that next step? These are all things we're really interested in learning about you, not just to suss out sort of, how good of a fit you are for Brown, but how good of a fit Brown is for you, because both things are really important. We'll look at your letters of reference as well, which sort of helps round out that application and helps us understand your goals as they pertain to the program. You should be submitting letters of recommendation from folks who know you really well. Make sure you ask early, make sure that you supply your recommenders with all of the information that they need in order to submit strong letters of reference. Your personal statement is a really great way to help them out, as well as your resume or your CV. And then, of course, we want to make sure that you meet the prerequisite course requirements for the program. So looking for folks who have a strong background in mathematics, statistics, engineering, of course. That's all really helpful for a program within the School of Engineering. Here's an outline of all of the requirements we have for the program. So I'll just sort of run through some of these right now. And then if any questions come up, of course, you can drop them in the chat, or after we're done, certainly unmute and I can answer those as well. So first, of course, is your transcript. We want you to submit a transcript from anywhere that you've attended after high school or secondary school, any institution that you have taken college level coursework at. If you transferred, a lot of times your original or your transferred institution transcript won't have the grades that you got in your classes at your previous institution. So that's why it's really important for us to have all of the transcripts from everywhere you've attended, because sometimes it could could be that you have a prerequisite course that we want to see the grade for that you took at your first institution. So that's just something to keep in mind where transcripts are concerned. We'll take unofficial transcripts for your application. We will require you to submit official transcripts by the time you enroll at Brown before classes start. If you're a student who has a degree or will have a degree from an international institution, you will have to submit a credential evaluation upon matriculation, but you do not have to submit a credential evaluation, a course by course evaluation upon application. We'll ask for that when you matriculate if you're admitted to the program. Your CV or your resume, like I said earlier, helps us get an understanding of your professional experience, your class experience, your research experience, your areas of expertise, things like that. Your personal statement should be 1,000 to 1,500 words outlining your goals, experience, issues that you want to address during your time at Brown or during your career after Brown. We require 3 letters of recommendation. Those letters of recommendation are all required. A lot of times I get questions, I have 2 really super strong letters of recommendation. Can I not submit that 3rd letter? And we do need all 3 in order for your application to be considered complete for all of our master's programs at Brown. You should feel free to submit letters from folks who have worked with you, who have supervised you, who have taught you in the classroom. Letters of recommendation from any of those sources are certainly welcome. If your native language is not English, we will require you to submit English language proficiency scores, which I'll talk about in a little bit, again, about standardized testing, and then the GRE, which is going to be required for some of our engineering programs, but not all of our engineering programs. And here's an outline of the deadlines for all of the engineering programs that we offer at the master's level at Brown. You can see, this is a very screenshotable slide. Biomedical engineering, chemical engineering, all of them sort of broken out. Commonly, a lot of the programs that we've talked in depth about here have a February 1 priority application deadline and an April 1 final deadline. And then for spring entry, November 1st would be the deadline if you're interested in spring entry for next year. As promised, a little bit more about standardized testing. I'll start with English language proficiency scores. If you do not speak English as a native language and you do not have a degree from an institution or will not have a degree from an institution where the sole language of instruction is English, we will require you to submit English language proficiency exam scores. And the only way you can satisfy that requirement is with either the TOEFL or the IELTS. You can see some more information about that on the screen along with our score code. As we talked about earlier, the GRE is also going to be required for some of our programs. The programs that do not require the GRE are the Master of Arts in Design Engineering and the Masters in Biomedical Engineering. The rest of our engineering programs will require the GRE or another standardized test. And then you hear some really just great feedback from our graduates. Our students really tell the best story about Brown and Brown's master's programs in the School of Engineering. Really students who've enjoyed their experience, not just at Brown, but also living in Providence. It's a really great place to live. It's a really nice place to go to school with close proximity to a lot of places in New England that you might want to visit during your time in the Northeast. Here are some great ways to connect with the School of Engineering. I always recommend folks follow us on social media in order to get an understanding of sort of a day in the life of a student. These are the handles that you can use for Brown Engineering. And then we also have a master's Instagram account that you're welcome to follow. If you have any additional questions after the session about the application process, you can email us at masters_admissions@brown.edu. And then, of course, you can also email the engineering program if you're interested in more academic focused questions. So that being said, I think it's time to start answering some questions, Ted. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
I think there's been some activity in the chat, but we'd love to have any live questions we could kind of talk through if you have any specific conditions in your that do affect your question.
Or the application deadlines, specifically for the early consideration deadlines, all materials, test scores, and reference letters need to be in by that date.
They need to be in within 2 weeks after the deadline. So we give you 2 weeks buffer time, knowing that some letter of recommendation stuff might be kind of out of your control, but we'll need them within the 2 weeks of that deadline.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no
And
problem.
And that the preferred timing is February 1, is that correct from the chart that you had?
Yeah, that's the priority deadline.
What does it mean? What's the effect of being a priority as opposed to the later date? I should know this, I apologize, but it'd be good for everybody to hear that.
No, that's a great question. It's a good setup. The great thing about the priority deadline is that you find out from us earlier whether or not you've been admitted to Brown. And there are a lot of things that you can't do until you're a fully matriculated student. You can't matriculate until you're admitted to your program. So things like getting on housing wait lists, coming to campus for an admitted student day, all of those things are going to happen in the spring before the April 1 deadline. So we definitely want to have folks apply by the priority deadline if possible, just so that they can be included in all of those different activities.
Okay, great response. Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Tracy and Victoria. I appreciate the introduction to the programs at Brown.
Please call me Ted. I'm not
Okay.
but
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, right. So I'm Lin Shi Yang. I'm studying in Brandon University, located in Waltham, Massachusetts. It's quite a close location to me, so that's one of the reasons I'm applying to Prime program at the moment. But the
Right.
other things that really attracts me is just the electives. It's the opportunity to take other classes that are taught in other universities in Massachusetts, for example, maybe Harvard. And I do love the opportunity to take the classes from another university so that I can have more knowledge, not only from one institution, but the other things that are so amazing in this region. So as the first question, I wonder how much of a freedom do I have in terms of
Yeah,
choosing?
so what we don't want to do is have people come to the Brown master's program and then try to think they're going to take 3 classes at Harvard and 3 classes at RISD. We do allow that to some degree. We allow 1 class typically in either organization. But you bear in mind, you're paying for, and your degree as master's is typically about 8 classes. So there are some very specific classes that we want you to choose from Brown, and you can augment that group with a class at Harvard and a class at RISD, for example. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for the explanation.
And I in fact, I'm actually in the embedded products group lab right now as we speak, and one of my students who's doing a project for us having to do with fabric computing has some interesting connections at Harvard right now, and so he's taken a class up there because they are very focused on fabric computing. So in that sense, he's bringing the knowledge from that campus down to this class, which is a great outcome.
I believe that is one of the reasons that Brown, as a university institution, also consider that as a really great opportunity, not only for the university, but also for the students.
And the other variation of this question is a lot of people will think they'll come to the Brown master's program because in engineering, because they want to kind of have a side door into the computer science department, which does its own world-class program. And that's not really recommended either. So if there's a need to take certain computer science classes, that's true, but we want you taking most of our School of Engineering classes and have a predominant amount of those core classes delivered through the School of Engineering as opposed to one of our other sister departments.
That is absolutely true. I mean, as a applicant, I'm absolutely interested in engineering, not only out of my background, because that is I have an internship in the engineering company, but also it's just the courses that I've taken. I really fancy this program as a future that I want to be in. And also the other question that I have is about recommendation letters. I took 2